Good morning to everyone who is
Good morning
to everyone who is in attendance. My name is Dr. Anthony. My name is Dr. I'll be the program director for this session. In brief, introducing myself, I'm a researcher in the Gauteng Provincial Legislature and also a scholar of public management and governance. So hope that we'll be able to work well together throughout the session and all participate. So as I've already indicated, the rules are just few. I think it's one specific. Please mute when you're not talking, switch off the video when you're not talking. You'll all be allowed to unmute and switch on the video when you are talking. And then with that said, I will also encourage that while we continue with the discussions, our audience as well send questions through the chat so that such questions could be raised to our participants and those who are connected directly to be able to respond to such questions. So as a starter, I request that we at least observe a moment of silence and prayer. Everyone can just pray in silence. Some can just meditate for just 30 seconds to a minute. Can we please do that, all of us? Okay, no, thank you. Thank you very much. I think my watch is telling me that the 30 seconds is over. So now we can able to start. Our first item on the program, it talks about the purpose and objectives of the seminar, which I think I'll be the one who's able to outline that. And then the purpose of the seminar is titled The Importance of Students Participating or Participation in Local Government Elections. As we know that we are heading towards the local government election in November, this is an important time for all of us who are eligible to can vote so that we participate during those elections. So, however, we know that after elections, there are questions that arises, more especially relating to the overall participation in elections, participation of different groups, in particular our young people. These questions, in most instances, they even go to the extent of questioning our democracy, which we are proud of and we relish, some of us. As we know, democracy is defined in many ways. The dictionary definition of democracy, it speaks about, it says democracy is about the people. I think many people goes to the extent of saying the people, for the people, by the people, and all that. And then a textbook definition, it talks about democracy in a form of representation and participatory. So that these two forms, participatory and representative democracy, they can well be defined through institutions that have a civil obligation to enhance or entrench the democracy. Such institutions include the Gauteng Provincial Legislature, which is the host or the co-host of this session together with the IEC and Unisa today. So the legislature is a body elected to represent the people's interest. So legislature has different mandates. Among those mandates, some of us we may be familiar with such mandates. Those mandates include oversight, cooperative governance that alludes to working together with other spheres of government, more especially municipalities. Oversight speaks to holding the executive accountable, holding different departments and organs of state, such as agencies, accountable. And then it also speaks about lawmaking. Most of us, we know the legislature as a body that makes law. So that's amongst the main mandates. The last one speaks to the public participation. This is a core and central, actually is more relevant to the contention of today's seminar that we're having. So, perusing some of the available literature on public participation, it says that citizen participation talks directly to citizen power, meaning that it gives power, public participation gives power to citizens to become able to decide or vote for their representatives to represent them in institutions such as the Gauteng legislature, such as municipalities, through voting for their preferred local representatives, such as councillors. So, talking directly to the local government elections, it is important that we try to navigate at least back, try to look back at the previous elections that we had. So coming from that election that we had, which was a general election, questions were raised related to the voter turnout, which remains a subject of contention. The questions were mostly associated with voter empathy, most especially when it comes to young people. It says young people seems to be disinterested, seems not to be interested to vote. Some don't even go to the extent of registering for voting, which is an issue. More importantly, noting that statistics alludes to 21% of eligible voters not interested to register to vote. And such statistics are made of, numbers are made of young people. So it should be a serious concern throughout our discussion. However, it is important that at least we take comfort of the announcement, recent announcement by the IEC, which indicated that among the newly registered participants for the local government elections are young people, which I think they make up the bulk, which is around 400,000 new registrations from young people. So it means at least something is starting to give. So in a nutshell, that's the purpose and objectives of this session, in which we are all going to be expected to participate, led by our panelists, of course. And then without a waste of time, because my time is limited and my work it's mainly related to me facilitating this session and not being the main character in this seminar. So with that, I will allow Dr. Oluetu Sipuka from Unisa, Dean of Students, to welcome all of us into this session. Over to you, Dr. Oluetu.
Good morning, colleagues. Dr. Malapane, our esteemed panelists from the Commission on Elections, Ms. Mambi, colleagues who have organized this great seminar titled The Importance of Student Participation in Local Government Elections. Colleagues, the esteemed doctor has already given us a preface to why this seminar today. And I would like to read a little bit of George Orwell in his 1941 book titled Fascism and Democracy, which I think he clearly stipulates or states why the importance, particularly of youth and student participation in determining the path that which people should follow, both at local government, but equally at national government levels. In the book, he writes, What is the use of political liberty, so-called liberty? To a man who works 12 hours a day for £3 a week, once in every 5 years, he may get a chance to vote for his favorite party, but for the rest of the time, practically, every detail of his life is dictated to by his employer, and in practice, his political life is dictated to as well. The moneyed class can keep all the important ministerial positions, official jobs in its own hands, and it can work with the electoral system in its own favor by bribing the electorate, directly and or indirectly. Even when some of the mischance a government representing the poor classes gets into power, the rich can usually blackmail that government purporting to be representing the poor to represent interests of the rich class. Most important of all, nearly the whole cultural and intellectual life of the community, newspapers, books, education, films, radio, is controlled by moneyed men who have the strongest motive to prevent the spread of certain ideas. I chose to read this paragraph, Program Director, because Marx talks about a negation of the negation in his seminal works. And Marx's negation of negation is primarily how do we negate, probably as student leaders, the dominance of capital in our societies that determines the content of our curricula, the content of what we watch in cinemas, the content of what we read in our newspapers. Now, the only way in which we could be able to negate that negation is through participating in, amongst others, local government elections as young people, but also as those that have got ideas that should be able to shape our futures, shape our governments, and also ensure that we find a center stage in the politics of our local government, but also at a national level. I know that when I was in the student movement, there was a saying that before we were students, we were members of our societies and our communities. And it's clearest to all social and political scientists that for us to negate the dominant ideas in our communities and societies, we require nuanced, fresh ideas that we should be able to change the discourse and trajectories in which that our communities are following at this point in time. So it is very important that as student leadership and as student leaders, we are able to get into the space of the elections, negate the negation that is dealing with particularly the poor masses of our people, but also to ensure that we shape the IDPs of our local municipalities. We must be able to walk out of campus, go and attend IDP meetings, ensure that the changes that we want to see in our communities find expression in those IDPs. But most importantly, the disability sector talks about nothing about us without us. It's important that the student movement in local government stratas also begin to adopt this important mantra and say that also in our own communities as students and student leaders, we are finding expression in councils. So it's not only about voting, but also how do you ensure that you find expression in the leadership of those councils, so that we are able to advance, for instance, students' interest in the committees such as those that are responsible, so that we are able to advance, for instance, security. We all know that all our campuses currently in South Africa, the committees such as those that are responsible in CBDs, safety and security, are under siege with regards to drugs. We all know that all our campuses currently in South Africa are under siege with regards to gender-based violence, CBDs, and many other issues with regards to drugs. See out there, sexual and other siege with regards to gender-based violence. Now, we as student leaders must make sure, and many other that we do participate both in elections and other structures of local governments. Now, so that we ensure that we must make sure safer spaces that we do participate out of our own both in elections but in structures of local governments. So that we ensure that we create safer spaces. university towns such as Harvard, a campus precinct, and Grahamstown, and many others, for instance, in the world, would not have existed had it not been for universities. So we must not see universities merely as spaces for us to learn, but as spaces for us to also extend the social and political and economic spheres of our societies. And thus it's important that we ensure that we're an integral part of the governance systems from within which our universities and colleges exist in. A program director, I was asked to merely welcome everybody to this meeting, and I think everybody now is welcome, and I'm looking forward to a highly engaging intellectual discourse and also solutions to the challenges of apathy that others are beginning to talk about when it comes to students and youth participation in elections. With those few words, Program Director and colleagues, I wish you a very fruitful discussion, and thank you very much.
Now, thank you very much for the warm welcome. I think we are all welcomed. Even our participants can attest to that. I do believe that. Indeed, young people cannot be merely or reduced merely to observers. So they have the power. So let's use that power and participate in elections and also go beyond that, as Dr. Oletui has just indicated, that we need to be active participants in our democracy. So without a waste of time, let me allow Ms. Ulenda Mambi to actually take us through the elections procedures and how should we go about as newly registered voters, as young people. Over to you, Ms. Ulenda.
Morning.
You can mute.
Thank you. Morning.
Morning.
Thank you, Program Director. I'm Yolanda Mhambi. I'm just going to take you through the protocols voting process, right? So we have 5 stops in the voting station. The first one would be the entrance, where you would find a voter, a queue walker, sorry, a door controller. This is where, can everybody see me? Sorry. Okay, great.
Yes, we can see you.
All right, my apologies. So he would make sure that you're wearing a mask, check that your fingerprints, they don't have any ink, would sanitize your hands, and then also check your ID. Then you would move to the next stop, which would be your voters roll officer. The voters roll officer has a VMD, all right, which is our latest device. They would scan then your ID with that VMD and then would check that you are on the voters roll and make a mark against your name that you have come to the voting station. Then you would proceed to stop number 3, where your left thumb will be inked using a cotton bud, which would be disposed. So the voter should wait 5 seconds, to just make sure that it dries off, while keeping the 1.5 meters distance with the other voters. You would move then to your ballot paper issuer. The ballot paper issuer would give you 2 ballots, a yellow one and a white gray one. All right. You must make sure that it has a stamp, the IC stamp at the back. All right. And then you would proceed to your voting, to the ballot booth, where you would mark the person or the party that you want to govern. This is a secret choice and it should remain so. And then you would make your mark, and then you fold your ballot and then place it to the ballot box, and then you can exit. So that is the 5 stops that we have within a voting station. And that is what's going to be followed come election time. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for taking us through the procedure that we need to follow. But I must warn you that going forward, you might be expected to participate as well in the discussions, especially when it comes to the role of the IEC, when it comes to encouraging young people in participating in elections in general. So he might be expected to participate going forward, as well as our esteemed doctor as well. And then without a waste of time, let me allow our panelists to introduce themselves. We will start with Charlton. Just a brief introduction.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Greetings, everyone. All protocols duly observed. My name is Charlton Uwa Agbekine. I am here for the Democratic Alliance Student Organization. I'm currently studying in Unisa, my master's in the field of information technology, both a diploma degree and honors were achieved at Unisa. I'm glad for this opportunity to talk to young students about why they should be going out on the 1st of November to be making their mark on that ballot box. If you look at the topic today, the importance of students' participation in local government election, I personally am coming from an African country, of which by name is called Nigeria, and I've been staying in South Africa for over 12 years now. I am well vested in the politics of the ground. I've been a student activist for close to 6 years now, and I'm still an activist and a forefront for the student voice. As we say in the Democratic Alliance Student Organization, we serve with leaving no students behind. We serve with the core values of freedom, fairness, opportunity, and diversity. So with all this said, I just want to let you know that we're going to have a very fruitful debate, a very open-ended session, a very reasonable debate why students should participate in local government election. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are looking forward to that lively debate. Let's allow Witumelo to briefly introduce yourself. Witumelo.
Revolutionary greetings. Oh.
Yes, you can continue.
Am I audible?
We seem to be losing you, but I think you can continue. We'll hear you while you are continuing.
What's going on? Hello?
We hear you, Witumelo. You can continue.
Okay. Revolutionary greetings, chairperson of the session, comrades and friends. I take this opportunity to give gratitude to all fighters and sympathizers of the June 16 revolution.
If I can just say that maybe if you turn your video off, we can maybe hear you a bit better. I think you have connectivity issues.
I take
so maybe just turn your video
this
off.
opportunity to give gratitude to all fighters and sympathizers of the June 16 revolutionary student movement. Okay.
We seem to have a problem with your connection with Witumelo. You can disconnect and then you'll reconnect. Let's allow the next panelist, Kongelani, to introduce yourself briefly.
Greetings, everyone. Greetings to the listeners and everyone that is in the fellow panelists and the moderator and everyone that is in this platform. My name is Kongelani KC Chauke. I am an LLM student in the ULO, in the University of South Africa. I'm also here representing the African National Congress Youth League of Antonio Limbede, and would be sharing interesting ideas on why young people, why do we think young people do not participate in voting. I would also want to introduce in my argument some of the interesting features that look at whether non-participation or non-voting per se is on itself a participation to the electoral call. So we will be really sharing ideas, interesting ideas in that regard. I'm an activist, student activist, have been a student activist, participated in the business hall movement, and most other significant events that brought about changes in the institution of higher learning, particularly in the University of South Africa. So it will be a very interesting opportunity to share the ideas and also to learn how other people think about certain things. And having been busy now with the campaigns for the local government elections, would also be able to share views in accordance to the responses that we get, particularly from young people who are between the age of 18 and 20 or 18 to 29. So it will be a very much interesting space in here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are looking forward to such discussions, such lively and interesting discussions that you are promising us. Let's allow Inganati. Over to you.
And one. Greetings to the program director, esteemed guests, the Dean of Students at the University of South Africa, the Program Director, Dr. Anthony, my fellow colleagues in the student leadership. My name is Inganati Ketwa. I'm the SRC chairperson of Unisa, Tshwane. I'm also the SASCO chairperson at the Sunnyside branch as well. It's located in Tshwane. When I got an invitation to this critical seminar, it was well intriguing, and when I read the topic, it was thought-provoking, especially now with the new trends that have been introduced in the political diaspora. There's a new rhetoric, but it's not just a rhetoric. I'm glad that it's also reflecting in terms of the population, in terms of what is happening, and the councillor candidates that we're seeing. The Muchapalong, I'm sure that most of our panelists and guests who are tuned in have seen the new trend. It is not just a new trend, but it is something that is also reflecting. If you have seen the councillor candidate list of the African National Congress, a quarter of it, or per se 25% of people that are represented in the councillor candidate list, it's 25%. And as young people who must say and compliment the ANC for the good job that he has done. But nonetheless, thank you very much. I hope that we're going to share fruitful ideas and hold this gathering with the highest level of discipline and intellect that it deserves. I thank you.
Do not switch off. Do not switch off. Let's just allow you to continue with the discussion, starting with answering the big question of today, of the importance of students participating in local government elections. So what do you think are also the barriers that stops young people from participating? So it's over to you, our last panelist. You can continue. I'll give you 7 minutes. Our last panelist.
Thank you very much, Doc. Well, as you would know that, am I audible?
Audible, you are audible and visible.
Oh, thank you. Well, I must say that voting is one of the fundamental cornerstones that we have ever achieved at the eve of democracy. So therefore, for a political system to be represented, all parts of society must be included, which includes the youth. As you would know that the youth is half of the majority of this country in terms of population. So when young people are disfranchised or young people are disengaged from political processes, a significant population has little or no voice or influence in decisions that affect a group of people's lives. So it brings a key consequence in undermining the political system's representation. So it is quite a problem if the youth are not involved. Hence why it is of paramount importance that the youth is included in such critical decisions and is also well represented in terms of voting. So to make a difference in the longer term, it is essential that young people are engaged in a formal political process and have a say in formulating today's and tomorrow's future in politics. Inclusive of political participation is not only a fundamental political and democratic right, but also crucial to building a stable society and a peaceful society. To make sure that we as well develop policies that respond to the specific needs of a younger generation. For younger people to be adequately represented in a political institution. When there are no obstacles in making sure that the youth is participating, institutionalized political processes, young people can rapidly feel disempowered and they tend not to vote or register. As you have seen in the previous turnout of voter turnout in terms of elections. When young people were not included, when young people felt that they are not part of the processes, they tend to disassociate themselves with the processes. So it is of paramount importance that make sure that the youth is included in all decision-making processes so that they can change the society. By the way, we are the future, so there is nothing that can be said without us, and there's no decision that can be made without us. So in the new and emerging democracies, the inclusion of young people in a formal political process is important from the start. A spotlight on the countries in transaction, young people active contributions can bring democratic values to life, leading to the overturning and authoritarian practices. In protests that you have enforced, and we have seen your Fees Must Fall protest, it showed and it provided narrative that the youth voice, when it's united, it can bring about a change. Today, we are the benefits of a free quality education. We are no longer paying school fees. It is because of the united voice of the Fees Must Fall generation. And we must comprehend and thank them in making sure that they have achieved a lot in making sure that the youth voice is included and is participated. And we have seen organizations, periodic movements, who are claiming many victories. You've got your EFF, which can't articulate any political issues. They suffer from irrecognition from society, but rather they would opt to chant and use slogans that are unrealistic to the masses of our people, selling them dreams. So it is very important for the youth, when they are making their vote, they make a vote that is it is informed, that is also inclusive of their desires, and making sure that we live in a harmful and a peaceful society as the youth. So we were, in my conclusion, I want to urge all students in making sure that they vote for the right political organization. In my opinion, I have no doubt that the ANC is the best way to go, and students must make an informed decisions, not influenced by singists or charlatans or sporadic movements who have nothing to offer but just useless thinkings and desires that will never happen. Thank you very much.
No, thank you. Before you disappear, you have raised so many important questions that the young people are interested actually in participating in the democratic processes in general. That's what you are saying. You even mentioned issues such as fees of must fall, which indeed is backed up by some studies which indicate that indeed young people do participate in democratic process overall. However, the question remains, so why not voting? How best do you think we can encourage them to also participate in voting? And then you also mentioned something about making them more interested in the political system, the current political system that we are operating within in the South African context. So the question that maybe perhaps will take this discussion forward, that you may also assist in answering, do you think young people have faith in the current political system? So these two questions, you can take them just for a minute or two.
Can you please repeat? I could not grasp.
Okay, the first question, I think you mentioned an issue about young people being interested in participating in democratic and political processes. Which studies, there are studies that are backing that indeed young people are interested. For example, you mentioned the issue of fees must fall, which is part of political processes. However, when it comes to voting, young people don't vote. So how best do you think we can encourage them to vote? And then you also mentioned an issue of the current system to say, let's encourage them to participate within the political system that we exist within. So the question that I was having for you is that, do you think young people have faith in the current political system? If not, what do you think must be done or can be changed in order to foster or enhance their participation? Over to you.
Thank you very much. What an interesting question. I must say that, first of all, young people, we as young people, speaking from a perspective of young people, we are not generally disassociating ourselves from participating into voting, but at some point there are material conditions that forces us not to participate. For example, you will find out that you are in love with the political organization, but you do not feel that you are included or your views are well represented in that particular organization. You have taken a conscious decision to register, but then you become easily convinced. And so I said in my opening remarks that it is very important that we conscientize the youth and we make them sure that they do not just react based on the media. They do not just react based on hearsays from sporadic movements, but it should be a well thought and a well informed decision when they are going to vote. So in making sure that it is the job of the conscious to make the unconscious about the importance of voting. So we all have a moral obligation as the society and those who understand the importance and the democratic right to vote. So I would urge, in fact, everyone as part of the panelists and my fellow colleagues in the various political student movements, to make sure that they conscientize wherever they are, the students, the youth, where they reside in their particular homes, about the importance of voting, because the youth per se is not generally immune to voting, but they are not well informed. So it is the job of us to make sure that we go out there, we preach out the gospel about the importance of voting. So in closing and in answering your question, in terms of moving forward and how we can make sure that the youth turnout is well represented, it is to make sure that the youth is well included, they feel part of the decisions. And so I also said that part of the reasons why we have seen a huge turnout in terms of voter registration, more particularly from the youth, the IEC would assist me with the stats if I'm incorrect, but I've heard that the youth this time went out. It is a reflection of what has been happening in various political parties, like your slogans, which is Mucha Palong. Mucha Palong was not just a slogan, but it was making sure that the youth is included, the youth is represented within. So you would see now, if all goes well, and I believe that we are not just going to end with Mucha Palong, but those youth will be well represented in various councils, your provincial legislature. I know one of the activists, Fasia, is one of the youngest member of the provincial legislature. When she joined the provincial legislature, she had already a background from the student activism. So it is very important that we grow within the ranks as the young people. And we are unapologetic when we say that we must take decisions to make sure that we dismantle all these old people who are over 60 in provincial legislatures, in municipal council, in parliament. The hour of the youth has struck, and it is upon our duty and not dare fail the population of this country as the young people. So I think there is no better time than now to make sure that as the young people who take over this country, as you would know, or as you have seen in the media, the PYA has taken a conscious decision to protest in a peaceful march to the treasurer to submit a memorandum of demands. One of the demands was that people who are over the age of 60 must resign from parliament, from executive cabinet, from provincial legislature, from municipal councils. So it
I think you've said a mouthful. You've said a mouthful. You've responded to the questions as well. So yeah, no, thank you for now. Thank you very much, Charlton.
Thank you.
Issues have been raised here. Issues such as conscientizing the youth, conscientizing young people, ensuring youth representation. So while you are responding to the big question of why is it important for young people or students to participate in local government, you are also expected to touch on those issues. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Speaker. The crop of the issues are many. Young people don't feel obligated to vote because they don't feel like their decisions are taken serious. Let's call a spade a spade. We have not recorded progress in young votes. In fact, we are going backwards. And the IEC will help me with the stats, like my previous speaker said. Young people that I've spoken to don't feel obligated to vote. Now, why is this? They don't feel obligated to vote because the current government has failed them. Let's not hide from the mandate. I'm not gonna be here and say young people should not vote for their parties of their choice. They should. But before voting, I would like to touch on what the previous speaker said on saying that if we know that experience have told us that this political party has failed, why don't we put our trust in new political parties? Now, if you look at in terms of young people, where the DA governs, we govern. You can see that the youngest at a time, the youngest member of the National Parliament was Yusuf Qasim, which was coming from the DA. At the time, the youngest member of Parliament was Tromela Butwa, which was coming from the DA. The DA has proved its uncommitment and its unreservable commitment to young people. If you look at most of the wards in the city of Tshwane, in the city of Johannesburg, in the city of Ekurhuleni, you would see that young people are the ones that are contesting for positions of councillorship in this local government election with the DA. The DA has brought out the youngest number of councillors who with an average age of 31. If we look at the track record of the ANC, they and my previous speaker was saying that they have marched to submit a memorandum. The ANC have old people in government, and this is the reason why young people's views are not being challenged in spaces as parliament, spaces as legislature. Why? Is because the ANC has continued to fail us. And now if you look at where the DA governs, if you look at the city of Rustenburg, we have an average age councillorship of 33. If you look at all our councillors, they're in the 20s, they're still studying. Now this is to prove that the youth's voice will be heard and will be heard amicably. Where the DA governs, we govern with pride. Where the DA governs, we know that for a fact, you can look at the job creation in the Western Cape. It's the highest. If you look at the job creation around South Africa, it has depreciated. Why the Western Cape is doing well? Because the DA is governing. Now, if you take that to accountability, this is why students should go and put their marks, or young people in general should go and put their marks for the DA. Because when the DA governs, we listen. Thank you very much, Speaker.
No, thank you very much. I think you have mentioned some important points, especially with regard to youth representation. So my question that I'm going to ask you is that how best do you think as a country we can able to achieve that? Since the DA is able to achieve it, how best overall do you think we can achieve that youth representation? And then the other question that you mentioned was the issue of socioeconomic issues such as employment and youth unemployment and that. So do you think that one of the issues that cause young people not to be interested in voting or participating in political processes in general is because they feel like the socioeconomic rights supersedes the right to vote? Those are the two questions that you may take on.
Speaker, I welcome the question. This is a lovely question. First, on the issue of youth representation. Well, with the issue of youth representation, the country must start taking youth serious. I like what the IEC did by implementing that you can actually register to vote at the age of 16 and vote at the age of 18. That is a very progressive step from the IEC, allowing people to pre-register to know, okay, we are ready to vote, but we are not yet allowed to vote. That is a very youthful strategies, and more plans like that can come up. Now, we look at plans such as we should set up youth parliaments and such gatherings as youth legislature. Yes, they might not have an overall say on actual governance, but that is a start. If we look at all our formations. For example, you've got the ANC Youth League, you've got SASCO, which is also an umbrella body under the ANC. You've got such leagues as the DA Youth. These are all youth formations. You have EFF Students Command. I'm not sure if they have a youth forum. These are all youth formation. Is there no way that all this youth formation can gather down and say, this is what we're going to be telling our mother bodies to do? This is how we are going to effectively say, now we want young councillors, now we want young PR councillors, we want members of parliament, members of legislature that are younger than the age of 40. That is one way to solve the problem. Second way to solve the problem was, like I mentioned previously, when you have a parliament or a setup focused on youth. I know such are going on currently, such as I think the Youth African thing that's going on in Midrand. I'm not too sure about that. But I think that has touched on the question of youth representation. Now, moving on to your second question, which is socio-economic representation. Truth be told, youths are not involved in the decision-making of economic budgets. Now, my previous speaker spoke on issues of Fees Must Fall and NEFSAS. Let's be honest, the national scheme of funding for students have failed the country terribly. I don't know who's in charge of NEFSAS, and I don't want to know who's in charge of NEFSAS. But one thing I can say, if you tie in NEFSAS as a social economy factor, I don't think youths actually, the budget that's sent for youth is not being implemented by youths. Old people come and tell us what to do with the money, and then they say, okay, no, there's what you have to do. So youths do not really feel interested. Rather, they want to just go to school and get a job. They don't feel like, if you were to ask any youth now, do you want to start up a business? And do you want to start up a business that's going to take us forward? Like, do you want to start up a business that will employ people? They'll say, no, I'd rather go look for a job. I want a job. Now, look at this. This is the reason why youths are not voting. They don't feel like there's a platform for a business to be started, but rather they just feel like we go to school. After school, we simply rush into getting a job. And with the current decline of economy, with the current decline of jobs in the country, how is that going to happen? You're going to have an influx of graduates and no job provision. Thank you very much, Speaker.
Thank you very much for the important points that you have raised. Inganati, while you are responding to the big question on the importance of voting or the importance of participating in local government elections, our last panelist raised a question on whether youth formations such as your SASCO, EFF, Youth Student Command, ANC Youth League, are they having an influence in terms of youth representation? Over to you, Nganati. Charlton, you may mute.
Well, thank you. Well,
not Inganati. Sorry. Kongelani. You know, this thing of SASCO and ANC Youth League contesting each other. At the time I was still in student organizations, we were not allowing that. Please, can you, can I allow Kongelani, please? Kongelani? Yeah, you can mute Inganati. Thank you. Kongelani?
Thank you very much.
You may speak at least closer to the mic. We can hear you well. Kongelani?
So I think
speak closer to the mic, please.
The very first thing becomes the democratic right to vote. That is the first thing of the national democracy that
you are not audible enough. You are not audible enough. Can you speak close to the?
But
Kongelani, may you speak close to the mic? You are not audible enough. You are not audible enough. You may continue. You may continue. Try to be unmute.
I was struggling to hear what
You may continue. You may continue. Yeah, but try to be at least close to your speakers so we can able to hear you.
Okay, thank you once more. So I was saying that in looking at this particular question of why people are not participating in the voting processes, we ought to answer and really clearly into people questions of what went wrong, when, and how. That is when we want to correct diagnose the problem so that we can provide the necessary tone that will actually the question. So I think the matter here is to look into the obviously the philosophical question or and obviously focus on the ontological and epistemological part. The ontological question is that what is the nature of reality? Do young people really participate in voting, whether white, continental, and countrywide? And then I think we should look at the I think we should look into whether the young people participate in the voting process. So that is to look into other countries and venture into whether they participate and what then causes that non-participation in this process of electioneering. So I would present that I would present that the European Union member states conducted a study which showed that in Europe, in the member states of the European Union, only 50% of youth participate in that particular voting process. The UN also conducted a study that showed that in 52 countries that were investigated, only 60% and less that of youth that participate in the voting. So the non-participation of youth per se is not necessarily the issue of the South African issue. It's not a South African issue, but it is a worldwide issue. It is a continental issue. It is the issue of the diaspora. So even when on check the participation of youth under different governments, including here in South Africa under the apartheid government, you find that the youth were not really participating in the voting process, even during the time of apartheid, where only the minority, the group of minority, was allowed to participate in voting. Young people were not participating. So the general sense becomes that youth generally are not convinced about the idea, are not convinced about the idea of voting, because young people are result oriented. When they vote, they want to see results immediately. They do not believe per se that if you do not participate in voting, therefore you pass by certain opportunities or certain things might not work in your favor in life. They are of the view that the voting process per se is archaic and needs therefore to be outdated how they look at things. So they do not believe that the voting process in a democratic sense would bring about tranquility and would bring about stability and would bring about all their needs that they so request. So the idea that young people do not participate in the voting elections because those here in South Africa, you look into the different universities, different colleges. If, for instance, you look at where elections in the Victoria, the previously, when you contest, not contest as an organization, you contest in this one, and these are young people that are in university, but only 10% of the entire general population of the University of Pretoria, general community of the University of Pretoria, partook in that election process, even though they were electing directly. I think the highest person that got the highest vote was, I think, got 4,000 votes in the university. That is a fourfold number of, that is over 100,000 students, and you find that only 4,000 people vote for this country, meaning that the highest participation was about 4,000 in that in those elections. You look at the case of Minister President, you get the sense of always about with the statistics of how many young people participate in voting. You find that it doesn't even make 15% of the general population or of the user community that participate in voting. So generally, young people are not convinced about the idea of voting, and we have to audit ourselves and the organizations that are making this particular initiative process, including the IC, by the way, to educate the people's output on the importance of voting and really design and come up with strategic and attractive ways in which we can actually attract the youth to come and participate. So I think the role of the public in electing leaders lies at the heart of our personal democracy. And the young people are the future that must carry out this mandate of personal democracy. Really, the issue of ignorance in voting, the issue of intolerance, and the issue of non-voting must really be taken into this particular process. So I'm arguing also that other young people who have been voting, for instance, if you look at the voting stats of 1994, young people were high about the voting process. They say, although it's only although it's only two that we convinced to go to the poll, you find that they were high going to the poll because they thought that for the first time there will be significant changes into the issue of government. But if you look at the second election up until today, you find that there is been a cross line in youth participation. The young ones that are born now are not interested. Those who are 18, between 18, because when you look at youth, we need to look at youth in two segments. The youth that is between 18 and 29, and that is between 30 and 35. So these people that are between 18 and 29 do not want to participate in the voting process, whether they are not conscious now, whether they are ignorant, whether they are intolerant of political abuse, or whether they just do not care. It's another issue that we need to look at as the young people, and also in partnership with the IPC that conducts general elections and local government elections. So those are the kind of things that must be debated upon. So I want to also bring an argument that we get when we are doing this job and we're engaging young people on the face-to-face interaction. While they say is that they do not want to participate in the form of voting, they don't want to go to the call on the day of voting, or they don't want because of the long queues that are there, and secondly, because they do not know what they're voting for, regardless of what organization is represented in the call. They just don't feel like voting. They just don't feel like it answers and resembles their own interest. So they don't want to vote. And other people believe that if they register and not they register vote but not go to cast their vote, they believe that such is a participation on itself. And I want to share the sentiment that non-voting is equally a participation, because this government is showing a making finger to the electioneering process That's showing a message and saying what you're doing is absolutely wrong, and you need to relook and reconsider how we conduct the thing. And we are saying this is our participation. Our participation is that we not vote. That is the participation, and that should be counted as a legitimate vote, because when a person does not participate in voting, they are actually communicating something, although it might be a mixed message. They are communicating something. Maybe if the ballot has a space where voters, eligible voters, would be able to comment. Maybe the IEC would be able to understand, and the country at large would be able to understand why young people do not participate in voting, but they would have detailed their reasons. I can tell you now that I'm right now, but I have never been approached to a single day by an IEC official that is convincing to want to vote. It's only because of the material conditions on the ground that described and changed my consciousness and led to my participation in politics that resulted in me participating in that. But how about someone that comes from the country, from the same village they come from, and does not have the opportunity to be conscientized or to conscientize himself or herself, and has not met these people of the IEC to be convinced that they want to. How about them who have never had anything about voting except on video or in paper or on social media? People say, you people go and vote. So these are type of things that the IEC should really look at, the legislature should really look at, and say, this is where we went from, and this is where we want back. We must speak things that speak directly to the youth, not necessarily in government, but also how we conduct our own electioneering process. So, for instance, I can figure now, as I used to say, if, for instance, we conduct election in one city, and say, when do we
I'm giving you a minute.
you are given a full bag, or you're given a pen, or you're given a report, you or water bottle, you see the rise in youth participation on the basis that the youth is wanting that is working, or the text that you are giving unto them. So generally, young people are not opposed to voting per se, but they are just not convinced enough as to why they should participate in voting, why they should vote and cast a vote and say we vote for the African National Congress, or vote for the South African Communist Party, or vote for the ANC. So they are just not convinced per se in the voting process. So the onus is not only in political parties that are conducting elections, whether you're Machavas, whether you're Sawitis, it's not with them. The onus is particularly with the IEC that conducts the electionary process to convince the young people that these are the reasons that they should vote. So young people have a proven record of tilting the balance of voting. If you look, for instance, at the resolution of the Galaga Index of 2010 by the African National Congress the revolutionary wing of the ANC, you would see that such forms now the national question, forms now the debate in terms of what is being looked at, whether in the national parliament, whether in the provincial parliament, or in the municipal bylaws. For instance,
thank you very much. Thank you very much. You've exhausted your time.
That are being debated, the nationalization of the Reserve Bank and other issues that are at the center of debate today, whether in the legislation, whether in the executive.
Thank you very much,
Kongalami. Part of the issues in the other arm of state which are taught.
Thank you very much. I think you have said a mouthful. You have raised critical points that the young people are just not convinced to vote. Those are very important questions that you have raised. You have even covered some of the questions I wanted to ask you. So with that, Witumelo, I hope your connection is back. Witumelo, if you can able to connect, while you are answering on the big question, the importance, also touch on how best can we convince young people to go about in participating in the political processes, especially electoral process of voting. Over to you if your connection is good, but if not, we'll have to skip. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Am I audible?
Yeah, now you are audible.
Okay, thank you. Firstly, I believe that the ideal conclusion for both ANC Youth League and SASCO would be to tell the students to go vote as it is their right, as they always tell us. But this conclusion would be doing an injustice to the diagnosis of this pandemic, that the youth of South Africa is simply uninterested in politics in South Africa. Why is the main factor, and what we can do to correct this injustice would be to rebuild what we refer to as a democracy. Let us not shy away from the fact that the democratic government of South Africa under the leadership of the ANC has failed us. Primitively, as students, we addressed the issue of free education, where tertiary students that were in our primary school, we grew up with in our high school, were arrested and are now black criminals because they declared openly that they are marginalized, impoverished, and therefore cannot afford these exuberant fees that institutions charge them for a Eurocentric curriculum. I would delve into the statistics of the decline of the voter participation within the student margins, but I would really be enrolling you into a mathematics class that you as a tertiary student cannot afford to pay yourself. So instead, I will state the reality. I will use UNISA as a synopsis since I am a student of UNISA. UNISA has 11 campuses in 9 provinces, which amounts to 450,000 students, in which more than 55% of them are NSFAS beneficiaries, and they receive 290 rands. If you were to write that down on a check, it would simply read 290 rands only per month as a living allowance, while a social relief grant that was introduced by the President Cyril Ramaphosa in 2020 for the COVID-19 amounts to 350, which is more than 50% of what a student living expenses what more than a student who is funded by NSFAS receives. And the fact that students who use NSFAS are not funded, they do not qualify for this grant, is not only so crushing, but it's also academically depressing for our students. But also, this shows that the crux of institutional issues of the Department of Higher Education and Training, led by Bladen Zemande, there are fundamental problems of ignorance, mismanagement, and negligence regarding the primary stakeholders of the South African educational institutions, which are the students. So, Matabane, this is proof that not only do students realize that we are not far from free education, but instead the concept of free education is a dream which has no foundation in reality. I believe that the posed question of the session, Chairperson, is what is the importance of student participation in local elections? How do we outline the importance when students themselves are not important to the government? The EFF Student Command rallies behind the approach which is anti-kleptocratic, anti-neo-patrimonial, anti-oligarchic candidates elections for ward councillors. We commend comrades of Ward 56 and 81 of Tshwane precisely. These are our known ground forces who will be participating as ward councillors, comrades who are willing to be tested and tried at a tender age of political and economic growth, who are able to teach and attract their peers into modern politics and dynamics within the African economy. Students have found expression in student politics and are studying main politics and have found cracks within the democracy of the ANC. But the #LEG candidates are doing an impeccable job, and we are behind the governmental and legislative and policy changes of South Africa. The interest of students is at a decline. That is the truth. And the tragedy is that there can never be a change of government unless the marginalized and disenfranchised majority of students and Black people in general show a unified numerical arrogance against our failed government to stand at polls and vote against the ANC. In conclusion, chairperson of the session and the audience, the importance of student participation in local government election must be for a new government. Free education, land expropriation without compensation, a decolonized educational system, and an obsolescence of neo-patrimony. We must vote for the end of class and racial antagonism in South Africa, which is to vote out the ANC. We are not interested in the ANC anymore, and they need to know as students. Thank you very much, Chairperson of the session.
No, thank you very much. While you are responding to my questions, the audience want to see you, if it's possible. You can just on the video, if it's possible. And then because the audience...
I apologize, Chairperson. My video is unavailable at the moment. I'm traveling.
No, not a problem. Not a problem. Not a problem. You raised pertinent questions. More importantly, with regard to the socioeconomic challenges or socioeconomic issues, to say how are we going to be interested in voting while we are not included in other decision making processes. So how best do you think we can go about in order to encourage the voting? Do you think the socioeconomic challenges are the main barriers that contribute to youth apathy in terms of voting?
Yes.
We are losing you. Yeah, I think we have lost you. I think we have lost you. You'll take the questions when you are back connected. For now, we have lost you. So with that, we have one question from the audience.
Even though we...
we are losing you, Vitumelo. We are losing you, Vitumelo. Oh, okay. It seems like we have lost Uwitumelo. The question from the audience, I see one question from Ukatlero. Katlero is saying that the first panelist mentioned the fees must fall as one of the issues where youth participated as part of the political processes. However, to this day, they are still fighting for the free education that was promised. Young people are not immune to voting, but maybe it's because they are misinformed or lack information at all. Maybe it's because of the constant failure they are subjected to. Maybe it's because it doesn't make sense to them. And why vote if I'm still subjected to sitting at home for months, knowing if government has funded me or not? So this question is directed to panelist one. However, we can all respond to as the panelists. And then there are also several issues that have been raised that are directed to the IEC. More importantly, with regard to civic education, to say how does the IEC go about to encourage or convince young people to participate in elections in general. So let's allow the IEC first, and then while our audience, they are preparing additional questions, because I'll take at least 3 to 5 hands from the audience so that they can ask questions as well. IEC?
Thank you, sir. So the question is, how do we go about encouraging people to vote?
Yes, and there was also an issue with regard to statistics that were raised, if they are available, to say from the previous elections, the youth participation, to the current, in terms of registration, how are youth interested?
Okay, regarding the stats at the moment, I do not have the stats of the increase, but the increase is due to the online registration. That's the reason why we have a younger group of youth registering to vote. That's the changes that we've seen because of the implementation of online services. Secondly, the IEC goes to schools, different stakeholders, in order to engage with the youth, to encourage them to vote. We've also seen the same thing, that they are not interested in voting. Hence, we've changed our message sometimes to say that the youth should engage with the people or the parties or the independent candidates that they're coming about to campaign, and to ask them what is their plan, what is their view, what are the changes that they are going to make within the municipality that they are campaigning under. And once they look at that, they should hold them accountable, whoever wins and all of that. So if a person is going to choose whichever party, they should hold that party accountable to the things that they said. And they have a right to change their choice. Hence, every 5 years, they are given a chance to vote again. So I also want to put to note that majority of the students come from homes, and they hear a lot from what their parents are saying, that they are not interested, whatever is not happening and all of that. So they hear this 90% of the time. So by the time we come in and we encourage them to vote, they already have views from home which are difficult to challenge. So we do go out and inform the different stakeholders. We'd like to come in, talk to the students and all of that. And the students that are interested would engage us, and then we'll give them information. And this is one of the things that we'd have to say, that you have a right to change. You have a right to engage with the political parties, independent candidates, and ask them what they're going to do and hold them accountable. Thank you. Hello?
Yes, thank you very much. I think you have responded to the questions that were asked. And then Dr. Ulwetu, on the role of institutions of higher learning on encouraging students, and then also touching on some of the issues that you deemed significant to at least emphasize. Dr. Ulwetu? Yeah, it seems like we are losing Dr. Ulwetu. Let's allow the audience to raise questions. You can just unmute from the audience if you have a question, and raise directly to the floor so that the panelists can respond to. Our audience? It seems like our audience, they are still thinking about their questions. So while our audience are still thinking about questions, I will request our panelists to respond to the question by Okatlego. And there is another question that is raised by Umduduzi Dlamini, asking, in what ways other than voting can people or young people participate in the political process? Which ones are electoral and which ones are not? And what are the strengths and weaknesses of each kind of the activities? Which one do we think that young people should take advantage of within the democratic processes? So that's the question from Umduduzi Dlamini. And in addition to that, I was asking a question again that I've just received here in terms of the role of the media in encouraging youth participation. And do you think social media is also a platform that can be used in encouraging youth participation? These questions are directed to our panelists as well as everyone that is connected to this seminar. So let's start with Charlton. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Look, these things are simple. It's very, very simple. Youths need to come out to vote because at the end of the day, this is their country. They must understand that they are legally or they are patriotically obliged to do this. Voting is not a question. Voting is your patriotic right. So now the question is, how do we make these students or these youths vote? Youths are in places such as churches. Youths are in places such as schools. Youths are very important to the economy as a whole. So basically, the best way I said, we encourage the youth, we go on social media platform, we go to them in church, we canvass them in schools. We owe it to ourselves, everyone on this platform listening in and panelists, we owe it to ourselves to go convince our constituencies on why youth must continuously to vote, not just for the 1st of November, but now and beyond. Voting is a right. I mean, if I had the right to vote, why would I pass off on not voting? Because my vote does count and my vote does put a voice. And I must encourage all youths and everyone listening on this platform that voting is a patriotic right. And please, come the 1st of November, put your X for the right and the party that you feel will serve your mandates the best. Thank you.
You did not touch on the question related to the role of media. Do you think media has a role to play?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Thank you, Chair.
And on the issues of social media as well. Do you think there are the right platforms to encourage young people? Someone new to this? Thank you. Okay. Yeah, you can continue.
Thank you very much, Chair of the session, for giving me this opportunity again. Look, this is simple. Media plays a huge role. I mean, these days, our youth are involved in things as TVs, news media, and social media as well. Like I did touch upon, social media will play a huge role. I mean, youth are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. If we can get our Twitter pages, our Instagram pages, and Facebook running, trust me, we can reach a lot of people. I mean, personally, I study information technology, so I know the use of information technology and social media to campaign. The Fees Must Fall campaign also gained momentum on social media. If you look at currently the youth campaign of End SARS in Nigeria, it was done thoroughly on social media. So now, if we want the youth of South Africa to vote, or the youth of this country in general to go out there and vote, we need to be active on all media spaces and all social media spaces. I really validate media as a main tool of communicating to the population in general on voting, on every issue. So voting is no different, and elections is no different. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Inganati, also touching on the issues that have been raised by the audience, in particular issues of participation and responsiveness of government, and which processes do you think youth should participate in beyond voting? Your take, Inganati?
Thank you. Still trying to. Thank you. To start off with the question posed by Katleho, am I correct? She asks a very critical question to say that how do we then come to deal with the conflict of not receiving service delivery but still have to participate? One, if you are not part, or if you want change, it should start within you. So she or he, they must be able to be participative so that they can influence the decisions within. So if now they then happen not to participate but they expect change, it is just, for a lack of a better word, it's pointless, or it's kind of useless, because you can't say that I want to change the circumstances or the future of this country, but you decide not to take action about it. So it is very important for young people to make sure that, in as much as we are dissatisfied or we are not happy about certain things that are happening in the country, but it is upon us to make sure that we are included and we forced ourselves within the system. I mean, everyone has a right to join any political party of their choice. So if you believe that the ANC or the EFF has or has the desires or has the right policies and presents the best interest of the youth, then it's well within your right to join that and make sure that you vote it into governance if they get majority. So to abstain and say, no, I'm not happy about 1, 2, 3, then you're not going to do anything. It's pointless. So it is very important that if we want to bring about change, we fully participate in our various organizations, and then we also make sure that we go out, we conscientize, we do door-to-doors, making sure that the youth is well informed about those issues so that we are able to bring change. The second question, it was also posed about by Katlego when she's saying that there's no free education. Well, I want to let me school you, Katlego. Free education, it's in a form of NSFAS. What used to happen back then, NSFAS used to be a loan. You used to sign what we call LAF, but now the design of the system of NSFAS, it is based on your academic excellence, not per se you have to get 50s, but of course you have to pass so that it's sustainable, so that you graduate. So NSFAS now today, I can tell you in good confidence, I am a beneficiary of NSFAS, and I do not have to pay back the money that NSFAS has paid for my school fees. And there are quite a number of other students who are being funded by NSFAS, and they do not have to pay back the money. So back then, it used to be a loan. So when I mentioned the matter of free education, well, that is the design, how it's designed to make sure that it is free. So it can't be just said as if we are in a shipping to say it's free or then everyone must come and take. But as people who are logic and people who are thinkers, there must be a system that is designed where something coordinatedly will be done. So there is free education. It's in a form of NSFAS, and it's a designed system. It's not just you go into institution of higher learning, you automatically fund it. So we need to also get the stats. So it's a well-designed system, just to clarify on that part. Well, on other issues, the media plays a critical role. I mean, the media as well, it is a fundamental tool to communicate and inform the society about the broader things and what is happening in society. So the media is a very powerful tool in sending out messages. If you have seen the IEC, because the youth mostly they watch TV, the IEC must try and come with convincing ways to attract the youth through the media. If you're watching ENCA or SABC, when there's an advert, they should try and find a way of attracting the youth about the importance of voting. So it's very fundamental that we have the media, because it plays a vital role in our societies and in spreading the messages. Your social media platforms, your Facebook, your Twitter, your Instagram, they are also part of these important tools, making sure that the message is communicated to the youth. As you would know that the youth mostly is focused on Facebook, is focused on Instagram, is mainly there. So now, again, the honors it lies within the IEC to make sure that they come with attractive and convincing ways through social media platforms that will be eye-appealing. When I open my Facebook account, I must perhaps see an appealing advert that would attract or caught my eye to make sure that I am attracted and I understand the importance of voting. So it is very important that we will look at all these things at a broader perspective, not just a narrow eye. And I must raise my dissatisfaction and disappointment when our fellow panelist said he doesn't care who's in charge of NSFAS, who said that he doesn't care whatever is happening in NSFAS. So it shows the lack of disinterest from students, interest, when you say that you don't care in terms of what is happening in NSFAS, who sits there, how NSFAS is ran, and then you have the audacity to call yourself a student leader, but yet you don't care about the body that designs the funding in institutions of higher learning. So I must say that I'm very disappointed at the previous speaker when they mentioned that they don't care. But to answer the last question.
Thank you. While you are answering the last question, there is also a question just came in now from Motokwa. They say yes. You keep on mentioning that that the IEC must come up with convincing means to attract the youth. What is attractive? Please unpack that. What is attractive? Please unpack that. That's what he's saying. Should the IEC go on TV and carry Savannah on the head or something related to that? You can continue.
Thank you. I mean, you must first diagnose what are the current trends. For example, the youth is interested in amapiano. Bring about amapiano singer DJ Maporisa to spread out the message about the importance of voting. The IEC must be where the youth is when there are events, joyful events, where the youth is mostly found. The IEC must tap into those spaces. The youth is also found on sports grounds. The IEC must tap in those spaces. The youth is found on malls. The IEC must tap into those spaces and make sure that they send out a strong message. So they should look at the current trends of the country and try and fill in the gap and see if they can find each other with the youth. And so I've mentioned example to say that the youth is mostly in joyful places, in other events that young people partake in. Why can't the IEC go there with their representatives and attract the youth through what is most relevant in the current times? So I think to answer that question, my brother, and I hope I've covered it well, the IEC can do those things in terms of making sure that they attract the youth. So in essence, I'm saying that the IEC must tap into the spaces where there is youth. And I've said that the youth is found in joyful events, the youth is found in malls, the youth is found in sports ground, the youth is found on social media, the youth is found on TV. So those comrades of IEC should look at the current trends and make sure that they fulfill those.
Thank you. I think you have covered it well. Yeah, I think you have covered it well. Thank you very much. Let's get to Kongelani. Kongelani, while you are touching on the issues that have been raised as well, perhaps you can also touch on the reforms that you think can be introduced and then or innovative ways that can be introduced in order to encourage young people to vote. And then on reforms, there is also the issue of looking beyond the current elections, since there was that constitutional court judgment relating to reforming the current electoral system in order to allow direct votes in general elections. So what do you think can be done in order to take advantage of such and it's also introduced innovative ways for encouraging young people. Over to you.
Thank you very much once more. Thank you very much once more. I think what the IEC ought to do, apart from what the previous speaker from SASCO has just said, I think they ought to go to schools wherein matriculants are mostly 18-year-olds, and then the grade 11s are mostly 17-year-olds, and then you go and speak to them about the importance of voting. So you teach them about the importance of voting from the early age, so that by the time that they reach the voting age and it is the voting process, they understand that they have a constitutional duty to go to the polls and be able to cast their vote to determine who should be the government of the day. So, let me just connect this one.
I'm losing you.
Just tell them my phone is disconnected. I'm connecting it.
Oh, the phone disconnected. Okay. You can mute. Let's go back to Charlton, because there is some questions that are raised to Charlton. Let me just first start with the comments. I think these comments are just a few from Maureen about NEFSAS, that NEFSAS is ineffective and then it needs reform because he or she struggled with assisting with registering 2 daughters and related to that. So NEFSAS is problematic. And there is also an issue of youth being the dominant part, which was raised by Mr. Ngoweni Tlanganani, that the youth should take advantage of being the dominant part or dominant bloc in terms of voting. So a direct question that goes to Charlton is that.
I'm back.
Oh, you are back. I'll allow you. Let me just finish the question that has been raised to Charlton. The direct question that has been raised to Charlton is that you spoke about young people being represented in your political organization, the Democratic Alliance. However, they want you to brief us on how the DA plan to represent the interest of the majority, the people of African origin, rather than minority, as you keep on referring to the Western Cape, DA doing well in the Western Cape. Then yes, the party has a lot of young people represented, but it's the lack of faith in their ideologies and systems that hinder a majority of young people to join the Democratic Alliance. That's a question to Charlton. He will come directly after you finished, Kongelani. I will just give you 1-2 minutes to complete your statement. Kongelani?
Thank you so much. And I'm sorry about that. I had to change the phone because the other one was switching off. So, as I was still saying, the IEC ought to find itself within the schools, ought to find itself within the churches, ought to find itself within every space wherein young people are constantly drawing interest to. IEC should go to the institutions of higher learning and be able to speak to the students. IEC must also be able to go to the sports field where young people are playing soccer. There is almost every weekend, there is a soccer tournament in each and every village. So IEC must be seen to be busy doing this awareness about public voting, and in particular, youth participation in voting. I am also interested in the question that was asked as to how young people can participate other than voting in elections. There are issues such as making of law. The law requires that when making the legislature, there ought to be public participation
after it is debated in Parliament, it must go to the public for the public to be able to debate it. I think the Doctors for Life case answers every specific question with regard to that. Anyone that draws interest must go and read that question, that case, the Concord case of Doctors for Life, wherein the issue of public participation was being queried. So I think that young people can also participate. If you look into the making of the legislation, whether on questions that speaks directly to the youth, like, for instance, your expropriation of land without compensation, young people still lack in participation. So I also want to demystify the submission made by both Uwa and Boitumelo of EFF to say that young people do not participate because of the wrong things that are done in government. The EFF has never been in government, but young people are rejecting it in the polls. They are not going to the polls. The DA has never been in government, but young people are rejecting it, are not going to the polls. How scientific is their statement that young people are rejecting it because of the economic policies that do not speak to them? I'm saying that IEC must design an attractive ways in which they interact. They must hire people, experts that will go and conduct a research on the ontological question and the epistemological question as to what went wrong and what is the nature of reality and how do we know that. What went wrong, when and how. That's when we'll be able to answer the question on youth participation. I made mention previously that the youth participation dilemma is not only the South African dilemma. You go to the European Union, the member states complains that it's only 40% of the eligible youth that participate in voting. And in actual fact, the youth that are above 29 years of old are the ones that participate in voting, are found within that 40%. But the youth that is below 29 and below, doesn't participate, don't draw inspiration, don't draw interest in this voting system. We need to educate the people's outlook, but also using other issues that attracts the youth. IEC must be able to host tournaments, soccer tournaments, wherein young people will be featured. IEC must be able to host music events where young people will be featured. That's where young people draw interest. IEC must be able to host games such as your chess boards, such as your 30 seconds, and other games that young people are interested in, so that they can lure young people into this participation, which is, by the way, eminent, and it gains and strengthens our constitutional democracy. It is not only a gain to a particular organization, but a gain to our constitutional democracy. Even now, even if you speak about direct democracy per se, as I have alluded before, now the constitutional court that you're referring to has actually said, even in national government, independent voters can be, independent candidates can be able to register themselves and stands outside the representation of the party. Even when young people have been given opportunity to stand on their own, they have this mistrust on the IEC processes, and they mistrust in the voting processes. And that's what needs to be demystified for us to be able to lure young people to vote and vote for the organization that they want. And at the end, what Uwa and Boitumelo are trying to advocate would see that it's a fallacy. Young people that are lured through the right channels and processes to come and vote will still vote the African National Congress, because they will see that the African National Congress is the only organization of hope, is the only organization that will take this country forward.
Thank you very much. I think you have covered all the questions. And you have raised important questions, especially the last question that you have just emphasized, or to Boitumelo as well as Charlton, to say how scientific is your claim that young people are not interested in voting because of the current government's failures. How scientific? As Charlton, you are going to respond to that question that was raised, to say how is your party, the DA, going to ensure that it represent or it attract the majority in terms of youth. And then there are questions. There are two additional questions which have been raised here, which are IEC does go to schools, churches, institutions. Mute, please, Kay.
Should I mute?
Yeah, mute. I'm still reading some of these questions. Yeah, yes, there is two questions, additional questions that have been raised to say IEC does goes to churches, institution of higher learning, and they are also on Facebook and Twitter. We cannot sell democracy in ties in order to have youth interest, young people, without drawing IEC to spaces. IEC, the young people should take initiative as well to be involved. How do they get to the level of the youth that is attractive with budget cuts and all that? Why does government not prioritize young people? And then there is the last question from Mr. Kanganan Ngoveni. The question is why it is that older voters are more likely to cast their votes while the young people make up a large portion of the voting eligible population. This is a missed opportunity that we need to address. So as you are answering that question that was asked directly to you, Charlton, you can also touch to these questions that have been raised by the audience. Charlton, over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair of the session. You see, I like the fact, in fact, big ups to the speaker who asked, and all youth who have asked questions. It's very important to ask questions so that you know, so that you can be conscientized, like other political parties will say. Young people are being represented. Now, when you talk about people from the Western Cape or people from Western origin, yes, the DA has this stigma that it's a white-based political party, but that's not true because Blacks are well represented. The national speaker of the DA, the national spokesperson of the DA is a Black lady, with you in second. You have Blacks in strong positions in the DA, but that's still not the point. We're not facing a dilemma against race. We're facing a dilemma against young people coming out to vote. Now, the lack of faith in the ideologies of the DA, like I've said, where DA governs, there's change. Look at the situation in the Midval. If we look at the situation in Nelson Mandela, there were implementations of solid ideologies, such as the DA give title deeds to house owners. Now, if you look at that on its own, that is an ideological stance because a title deeds give you a leverage to will your possession to your children. So now you know what you are leaving for your children behind. But now, why don't young people put their trust in us? I mean, we've been there implementing systems. If you look at the BRT system in Tshwane, the DA carried it forward and totally implemented it. Yes, there are problems now, but if you look at the DA, the financial debts that it owed over the past 5 years, that the ANC incurred, mind you, the DA has solidified in fixing the debts, and almost Tshwane is at no debts. So I still encourage young people to come out and vote for us. That's to touch up on the question that was directed to me by Renai. With Maureen's question, NEFSAS, and to touch upon what my previous speaker has said, NEFSAS is not the institute of NEFSAS is not the issue here, but the corruption within NEFSAS is what I was challenging. I don't mean by I don't care who is in charge of NEFSAS. We all know that the people in charge of NEFSAS is the ANC. If you look at the leadership of NEFSAS as a whole, there are people who are participating in the ANC. That's not a secret. So NEFSAS have failed our students in the sense that they don't even deliver for students. So we are calling for a reform of NEFSAS. And how do we do that? We properly allocate people to the right channels. We want youth leading within the system of NEFSAS. If you even look at a structure such as NIDA, which is for youth development, it's captured by the ANC. And that is that's my response to NEFSAS. NEFSAS needs a proper reform and a decentralization. If you want more of that, I can go into details, but I don't think time will allow me. Okay, yes, the IEC does go to this. It's okay. We love what the IEC is doing. We're not putting the burden totally on the IEC, but we are saying that we as political constituencies, we have youth organization. I did make mention to this. I said there's the ANC Youth League, there's the DA Youth. I'm not sure about the EFF having a youth wing, but I know that majority of political parties have their individual youth links. The onus is now on the youth wings to go speak to their constituency. The IEC does a good enough job enough. For now, I'll give the IEC a 70% work done, but there's still another 30% of effort they can put in. Now, the onus is on we young people to conscientize our former young people. Now, for the comment on Tlanganani, this question is why older voters are more likely to cast their votes. Older voters know the importance of voting than young people. We should continuously conscientize young people. I know the EFF have come in with this young vibe, but we as the Democratic Alliance, we are still the champion of young people's interest. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think you have touched on the questions that have been asked and you have responded to them clearly. These other ones that have been raised here are just comments. I think our panelists can able to go through them. IEC, just a general comment and take.
Thank you, sir. I just wanted to say that the IEC has appointed 7 mocks within the region of Tshwane to go to different stakeholders. And I would put forward whatever has been asked by the people, but I don't think that due to the budget cuts, as Muteko said, so yeah, we're out there. There's 7 people, there's 7 mocks that have gone out to the different stakeholders, and we are doing our best to encourage the youth to come out and vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And GPL, as one of the stakeholders attending, how does the GPL go about to encourage youth participation in voting other than having these seminars? Someone from GPL? Mr. Mutungwa? Mr. Mutungwa? Okay, it seems like we don't have someone from the GPL. So as with that, let me give Witumelo your parting shot, if you're still here. Witumelo? Okay. Inganati, I'm giving you 1 minute. Your closing remarks. Yeah, just a minute. Your closing remarks.
Thank you. I must say that this was thoughtful, well interesting, well coordinated. It leaves one. I think we should have more time to discuss such issues. It gives one hype and jubilance within when we have such debates. I think the provincial legislature, together with other stakeholders, should be able to host more of these gatherings that are youth orientated, not just only when it's election time, but we should be able to create topics that are within the scope and context of the youth. Any time of the year, callers will be available. We share ideas, but of course, we ought as young people to be cautious when we say or mention things, because our fellow panelists, for example, Boitumelo and their organization, they suffer from societal recognition, even though they are saying they're a youth-based political organization. They're saying that you must vote out the ANC, but still they suffer from that recognition. Society, in particular the youth, is not recognizing them. So we ought to be cautious and factual when we present our presentation. We must not behave or say things as if we are just falling down from the tree.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Can I finish?
Yeah, just finish 30 seconds.
In conclusion, thank you very much. This was a well thought-provoking session, and I hope that the IEC will improve. They've taken our suggestion in terms of improving how the youth can be attracted. We have mentioned a lot of ways in terms of how they can then attract the youth, because we are the youth, so we know what entices us. So we're not just speaking on the basis of our political organization, but we belong within the ages of the youth. Thank you very much to the IEC, Mail and Guidance, the provincial legislature, the panelists, from various political organizations, your EFF, Security Command, your DASO, your ANC Youth League. I think I must also comprehend the level of discipline that has been posed. The House did not degenerate. We shared ideas, we contradicted and complemented each other where it was necessary. Thank you very much. I thank you, the SRC, as well as the South African Student Congress. Would really like to say that we siyabulela ngesixhosa. Bekumnandi uba nani bahlekazi.
Thank you. Kongelani, your parting shot.
Chair.
Kongelani, your parting shot. Yeah,
Chairperson.
Just a minute.
Chairperson.
Ntate Mutungwa.
Yes, Chair. I think on behalf of, I'll be very brief, on behalf of the legislature, we want to echo what Inga had said insofar as it relates to our, the continuation of such programs. Indeed, we will be touching base, and we are grateful for the partnership with UNISA. And I think this must not end here. It must even transcend beyond here. We have our youth parliaments at the Gauteng legislature, and we look forward to having the same audience and many more other students in participation into our civic programs such as the youth parliament. Thank you very much. And I think we are also happy with the level of engagement and the preparedness of the respective panelists. Thanks, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Kongelani, just 30 seconds. Kongelani? Yeah, it seems like we have lost Kongelani. With that, I think we have...
I'm here.
Okay, 30 seconds.
Yeah, thank you so much. There is a saying, there is a quote I like from Steve Biko. Biko says in response to the black majority taking over all the processes, Biko says black people are tired to stand in the touchline and watch the game that they should be playing. We must do things by ourselves, for ourselves, and by ourselves. So I'm saying now to young people that wherever we are, or as much as we have different views on specific matters, let us engage in views that seeks to broaden our democracy and that seeks to better the society. The ANC has a slogan that we hope and pray that tomorrow will be better than yesterday, because it acknowledges that it is not, of course, a saint. It has its own errors, but it strives to be a better organization every day. It strives to be a better government every day. So I'm saying that youth and all young people, respectively, whether in their early 40s, whether in their 18s, whether in their 20s or the 30s, young people, we urge you to participate either on the voting debate, the debate on voting or non-voting, and also in the electioneering or the election process, so that we can have a very meaningful constitutional democracy and be able to lead and chant the way forward and encourage ourselves that we are deeply interested in the processes that leads and seeks to broaden and build our democracy. I thank you so much, and thank you for the invite. And thank you for the manner in which the process was conducted. It was really enriching. And I want to thank Dr. Spuka, Dr. The program director, and also everyone that is involved from the provincial legislature. We thank you for this particular platform. This is part of the things that would ensure that there is youth participation in this matter. I thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Charlton, 30 seconds.
Thank you very much, Speaker. I would just leave our youth with a few words. You know, I can see I'm being criticized a lot on the comments, which is a good thing. It shows leadership. I'll leave our youth with a very strong word. Go out on the 1st of November, go vote for DA. And yes, we thank you very much. We hope we can have such engagements with you. And we thank the Gauteng Provincial Legislature for organizing this. And thank you to all our listeners who came out in their numbers. Thank you. Keep going as Democrats.
Thank you very much. I think most of the comments that are remaining here is that we should have more of these seminars. We should have more of these discourse conversations. And then, yes, we are wishing for more going forward. And then they also thank Umeste Mudungwa, and then thanks Dr. Malapane. Thanks for the sterling work. And thanks to the panelists for your productive and fruitful discussions. I think we did all benefit from these conversations, and we are looking forward to future seminars or platforms like this where we are going to be discussing about these important issues. With that, allow me to adjourn this session. The session is adjourned. Thank you very much.